How would you feel if your childhood best friend stole your future, tricked you into becoming a maid, and tried to marry the man who was meant for you? This is the untold story of Dorcas, a poor, brilliant graduate who was betrayed, buried, but never broken. What she did when she discovered the truth will make you cry, clap, and believe in destiny all over again. The first day Dorcas walked into Nathan's mansion, dressed in a faded lilac gown and rubber slippers, the security guard almost didn't let her in. He had mistaken her for one of the many neighborhood girls who wandered around rich homes begging for food. But her soft voice, respectful tone, and the letter of employment she held in her trembling hands quickly changed everything. She was the new maid. The house was enormous, almost the size of her entire faculty building back at the university. Marble floors, framed paintings, chandeliers that sparkled like diamonds. It didn't feel real. Dorcas blinked twice to be sure it wasn't all a dream. But it wasn't. It was her new reality. She dropped her small traveling bag in the corner of the servants' quarters and sat on the narrow metal bed. The mattress creaked beneath her, but she didn't care. What pained her most wasn't the work, or even the humiliating uniform she'd soon wear. It was the fact that she was a first-class graduate in English from a federal university. And now, she was employed to scrub floors, wash toilets, and serve food in a house where she once dreamed of working as a communication officer. Her heart was heavy, but she smiled anyway. She thought of a mother in the village, battling arthritis, and her younger siblings who still looked up to her. She had no right to cry. After all, she had willingly accepted the job. The pay was small, but at least it came with a roof over her head and meals she didn't have to beg for. "Dorcas," a voice called gently at the door. She turned. It was Tracy, her childhood best friend. Tracy walked in, all smiles, dressed in a sharp office skirt and heels that clicked with confidence. Her lipstick was deep red, and her perfume filled the room like pride. "I told Mr. Nathan you're the best when it comes to housekeeping. I practically begged him to give you this job," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "You're lucky. At least now you have something." Dorcas managed a smile. "Thank you, Tracy. I really appreciate it." Tracy sat beside her and held her hand. "You remember our promise in JSS 2? That we'd both make it in life no matter what." Dorcas nodded slowly, memories flashing like lightning in her head. How they used to read under the mango tree, how they shared pencils, food, and dreams. "Yes," Dorcas whispered. "Well, I'm already in the company's inner circle now," Tracy said with pride. "I can pull you up too. But start here. Be humble. Don't ask too many questions. Just do your job and trust me, things will get better." Dorcas didn't know what to say. Something about Tracy's tone was strange. This was not the same girl who used to braid her hair during long holidays or sneak Gary and granuts to her when there was no food. This version of Tracy seemed polished on the outside, but cold inside. Still, Dorcas believed her. Why wouldn't she? This was her best friend. That evening, Dorcas began her first round of duties. The house was spotless already, but she polished the furniture again. She ironed Nathan's clothes like she was preparing a thesis. She even helped the cook prepare Nathan's favorite, boiled plantain with garden egg sauce. But she hadn't seen him yet. Nathan, the man she worked for. All she knew was that he was wealthy, powerful, and quiet. A self-made billionaire who built his media company from nothing. People said he didn't trust women. Some whispered he had a tragic past. But Dorcas didn't care for rumors. She just wanted to survive. Late that night, while cleaning the study room, she saw a dusty poetry book lying beside a leather armchair. It was titled, Whispers of the Soul. She picked it up and smiled. She had read it back in school. As she recited a line softly, "I loved you like silence loves the night," she heard a deep voice behind her. "You know that book." She froze. Slowly, she turned. A tall man in a white shirt and black trousers stood at the door. Clean-shaven. Calm eyes. Gentle but commanding presence. It was him. Nathan. Yes, sir, she answered quietly, lowering her eyes. What's your name? Dorcas, sir. He walked closer, picked the book from her hands, and stared at her for a moment longer than necessary. You can go, he said finally. Dorcas bowed slightly and left, her heart beating like a drum. She didn't know what it meant, but something in his eyes told her this man was not as unreachable as they said. He had pain in his eyes, pain she strangely understood. Back in her tiny room, she couldn't sleep. She hugged her pillow and whispered to herself, one day, you will rise again. Even if the whole world forgets you, even if your best friend tricks you, you will rise. Outside, the mansion lights glowed like the stars she once dreamed under. And so began her journey, not just as a maid, but as a woman about to rewrite her destiny with pain, courage, and unexpected love. Years before Dorcas found herself scrubbing marble floors in a billionaire's mansion, there was a promise, an innocent promise between two girls under a mango tree. Dorcas, Tracy had said, we'll go to university, graduate, and work in big companies together. Nothing will separate us. Not even money. Back then, Dorcas believed her. Tracy was the sister she never had. Loud, playful, full of dreams. They wore matching clothes to church, cooked together, and cried into each other's shoulders when their parents couldn't pay school fees. But life had a funny way of peeling the truth layer by layer. Dorcas remembered the day it all began. She had just graduated with flying colors, a first class in English. She was glowing with hope. Her NYSC year had ended, and she was home job hunting. One afternoon, Tracy paid her a surprise visit, dressed in fine clothes and with her usual excited chatter. Babe, guess what? I've got a connection in a big media company. They're hiring PR officers. Very juicy pay. Tracy had said, practically bouncing on the spot. Dorcas had gasped, eyes wide. Are you serious? Yes. Now. But here's the thing. They're asking for credentials today. I don't have mine on me. But since we're the same age, same state, same everything, I can just submit your own for now. Just to hold the spot. Then I'll switch it when I get mine from home. Dorcas hesitated. Something felt off, but she trusted Tracy. Always had. She handed over her CV, her degree, and her NYSC discharge certificate, all originals. Just for a few days, Tracy had promised. You know I'll never do anything to harm you. That was the last time Dorcas saw those documents. Days turned to weeks, then months. Tracy stopped answering calls. When she finally picked, she claimed she lost the documents in a car robbery. Dorcas was devastated, but blamed herself. She didn't know how to tell her mother. She became withdrawn, jobless, and hopeless. Every interview she applied for needed original documents. Without them, she was locked out of opportunities. Until one day, her phone rang. It was Tracy, after almost a year. Hey babe, I've got good news for you, she said cheerfully. There's a billionaire I work for now, Mr. Nathan. Very kind man. He's looking for a reliable maid for his mansion. I told him about you. Don't worry, it's just temporary. Once you're in, I'll help you get a better position. Dorcas was hesitant. Me, a maid. Tracy, I'm a graduate. I know, Tracy rushed. But look, no credentials, no job. Right now, you need income, food, and shelter. And you can't stay home forever. Just take it for now. Trust me, I'm doing this for your own good. She gave her an address and said an offer letter would be waiting at the gate. Dorcas, too tired to fight, accepted. What she didn't know was that it was all part of a calculated trap. You see, Tracy had never lost her documents. In fact, she had forged a few details and submitted them under her own name, securing the job of public relations officer at Nathan's company. And not just that, she had carefully studied Nathan's taste, habits, and vulnerabilities. She knew he was lonely, that he avoided flashy women, and that he admired simple, intelligent ladies who reminded him of his late sister. Tracy was no fool. She shaved down her flamboyance, practiced humility, and sold herself as a soft-spoken, educated lady with a degree she never earned. Within months, Nathan began to trust her. But Tracy had a problem. Dorcas. If Dorcas ever surfaced with the truth, it could all come crashing down. So she hatched a plan. Keep Dorcas close, but at a distance. Hide her in plain sight. Make her a maid in the same house, right under her nose, yet far from the truth. That way, Dorcas would be too tired, too humiliated, too poor to ever fight back. And when Tracy finally succeeded in marrying Nathan, she would quietly kick Dorcas out and bury the past forever. But fate had other plans. That same evening, after mopping the living room floor, Dorcas sat on the edge of the stairwell, staring into space. She overheard Tracy on the phone nearby. "Yes, she's here already. I told you she's harmless. Knave. She doesn't even suspect a thing." Dorcas froze. Her hand tightened around the mop handle. She wasn't sure what she had just heard, but her spirit stirred. That night, she stared at the ceiling in her tiny room, thoughts racing. Why did Tracy always sound like she was hiding something? What had really happened to her documents? And why did she feel like a prisoner, instead of a guest, in this mansion? Then came a knock on her door. It was Nathan's mother, gentle, elderly, and warm. "I heard you were once a teacher," she said softly. "Yes, ma. I studied English." The old woman smiled. "Good. I've been writing a book of poems for years, but no one seems to understand them. Maybe you can help me." Dorcas' eyes lit up. For the first time in months, someone saw her beyond the uniform, beyond the lies. She nodded quickly. "Yes, ma. I would love to." As the old woman left, a quiet voice rose in Dorcas' chest. "Your story isn't over." She didn't know how. She didn't know when. But she knew, one day, somehow, she would find out the truth, and the world would know who she really was. Dorcas had just finished washing the crystal dishes in the kitchen when the head cook, Mama Elsie, tapped her shoulder. "Madam wants to see you in the rose garden," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. Dorcas blinked. "Me?" Mama Elsie nodded. "Yes, you. And wear something better than that rag." Dorcas quickly changed into her cleaner maid gown and tightened her scarf. Her palms were still dry from the detergent, but her heart was beating faster than usual. She followed the narrow walkway lined with flowers until she reached the garden. The sun was soft that morning, and butterflies fluttered lazily between the petals. Sitting under the shade of a mango tree was Nathan's mother, a frail but dignified woman who wore simplicity like a crown. Beside her sat someone else, a man in a white shirt, sleeves folded, with his back turned. "Nathan." Dorcas immediately bowed. "Good morning, Ma." "Come, Dorcas," Nathan's mother said, gesturing kindly. "Sit with us. I was just telling Nathan about your gift." Nathan turned slowly, his eyes meeting hers for the second time since their brief encounter in the study. Up close, he looked even more serious, not arrogant, but distant, like someone carrying an invisible weight. "She's the one?" he asked his mother without taking his eyes off Dorcas. "Yes," she smiled. "The girl who corrected the rhyme scheme in my poem, and even explained the metaphor about the broken mirror. A maid who thinks like a scholar." Dorcas lowered her eyes modestly, her heart thudding. "I studied English, sir," she said quietly. Nathan tilted his head. "Where?" Federal University of Oena. I graduated with first class. He blinked, surprised. You did? Yes, sir. But my documents were stolen during NYSC. I haven't been able to get replacements. Nathan said nothing for a moment. He simply watched her. Then he leaned back and opened the book of poetry his mother had brought. Read this, he said, pointing to a page. Dorcas took the book with slightly shaking hands. Her voice, calm and melodic, floated into the morning air as she read. I buried my dreams beside a thorn, but they bloomed again at break of dawn. She paused, then explained. This line means pain may delay destiny, but it can't destroy it. Nathan's lips parted slightly. He didn't smile, but something in his expression changed, like he had found a mirror in an unexpected place. He nodded slowly. That's very accurate. Dorcas handed the book back and quietly stood. I'll return to work now, sir. No, Nathan's mother interrupted gently. Join us for tea. Dorcas almost choked on her breath. She glanced at Nathan, expecting disapproval, but he simply waved at the waiter without protest. That morning, Dorcas sat at the same table as the man who unknowingly held the key to her future. She didn't speak unless spoken to, but Nathan's mother kept drawing her in, asking about her favorite authors, her childhood, her dreams. It was the first time Dorcas laughed in months. But upstairs, someone was watching. Tracy. She stood by her office window, eyes narrowed, fingers clenched around her phone. She had seen them, Nathan, his mother, and Dorcas, drinking tea and laughing like old friends. She dialed Nathan's number. Fast. Hey babe, she purred when he answered. I just had this idea for a new PR campaign. Do you have a moment? Later, Nathan said flatly. I'm in the garden with Mum. With Dorcas? She asked, unable to hide the sharpness in her voice. Nathan paused. Yes. Do you know her? Tracy forced a smile into her tone. Of course. She's my childhood friend. I recommended her to you. Remember? Nathan didn't reply. That night, Tracy cornered Dorcas in the kitchen while everyone was asleep. You think you're smart, she hissed, flashing your eyes at Nathan like you're better than everyone here. Dorcas took a step back, startled. I don't understand. You don't need to. Just remember this. You're a maid. A cleaner. Not a princess. Tracy leaned closer, voice like a knife. And the day you try to be anything more, I will destroy you. She stormed out, leaving Dorcas frozen in place. Tears welled up in Dorcas' eyes, but she blinked them away. She had already cried enough in this life. Instead, she walked to her small room, picked up the poetry book Nathan's mother had lent her, and whispered, Pain may delay destiny, but it can't destroy it. She had no idea that the man she served was already asking about her behind closed doors. Asking who she really was, where she came from, and why she, not Tracy, moved his soul without saying much. Fate was beginning to stir. And this time, Dorcas wouldn't sleep through it. Tracy sat in front of a vanity mirror, applying a light coat of foundation to her already flawless skin. Her lips curled into a smile, not because she felt beautiful, but because everything was going according to her plan. Nathan was warming up. Slowly, predictably, blindly. In the past 3 months, she had carefully softened her voice, altered her dressing, and even switched to reading quotes from books she never actually opened. She studied the kind of woman Nathan admired and wore that personality like a mask. And now, she was closer to the prize than ever. His heart. And his name. But there was a problem. A threat. A familiar face that was not supposed to rise again. Dorcas. From the moment she saw Nathan's mother smiling beside Dorcas in the garden, Tracy's peace was shaken. The memory of Dorcas reading poetry so effortlessly, Her poise, the light in Nathan's eyes as he listened, it made Tracy's heart burn. "Not again," she whispered to herself. "I stole your wings once, Dorcas. I won't let you grow them back." That same evening, Tracy invited Nathan over for dinner at her apartment. Candles flickered. A soft piano instrumental played in the background. She wore an elegant black gown, the kind that spoke elegance without shouting. Nathan arrived, tired but polite. "Red wine," she offered. "I'll pass," he replied, loosening his tie. As they ate, Tracy leaned closer, watching his every movement. She smiled at all the right times, offered ideas for his upcoming PR campaign, and complimented his leadership. "I've been thinking," she said, her eyes dropping shyly. "You've achieved so much. But I don't see you going home to anyone. A man like you should have love in his life too." Nathan looked up, his face unreadable. "Love isn't as simple as people think." Tracy tilted her head. "It can be, if it's with the right person. Someone who truly understands you. Someone loyal and discreet." She placed her hand softly on his. He didn't pull away, but he didn't return the gesture either. After a moment of silence, he cleared his throat. "I should get going. Early meeting tomorrow." Tracy hid her frustration. "Of course." As he left, she stood by the door, watching his car disappear into the night. Then, without missing a beat, she pulled out her phone and sent a voice note to Dorcas. "Hope you cleaned his guest room thoroughly today. I saw some dust on the corner last week. Don't embarrass me, Dorcas. This is a rich man's house, not your village." Dorcas heard it just as she was folding laundry. Her hands trembled as the words sunk in. She knew Tracy too well. She wasn't just reminding her of the job. She was reminding her of her place. Dorcas clenched her jaw and put the phone aside. She walked to the study and picked up the poetry book again, the one Nathan's mother had lent her. A note had slipped out. It read, "Dear Dorcas, you have something rare, a spirit that speaks without shouting. Never let the world convince you to shrink." It was signed, Mrs. Victoria Akib, Nathan's mother. Dorcas smiled gently and tucked the note close to her chest. Downstairs, Nathan was in the home library, reviewing some files. He heard soft humming, a familiar tune. He followed it, expecting to find one of the cleaners. But there she was, Dorcas, alone, staring at the fireplace, quietly singing a hymn, "Great is thy faithfulness." He didn't interrupt. He stood by the door, arms folded, listening. There was something about her, something honest and grounded. She wasn't trying to impress. She didn't even know she was being watched. Nathan finally spoke. "You sing like someone who knows pain." Dorcas turned quickly. She hadn't seen him. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know anyone was here. I'll leave now." "No," he said gently. "Stay." She paused, confused. Nathan stepped in and picked a file from the table. He didn't look at her when he said, "You have a degree in English." "Yes, sir." "Then what are you doing here?" he asked without malice. Dorcas hesitated. Her throat tightened. "It's a long story, sir." Nathan nodded. "One I'd like to hear sometime." And just like that, he walked out. Dorcas stood still, her heart pounding. But up in her room, Tracy was spying from the hallway camera. She had watched the entire exchange. And for the first time, she panicked. The Dorcas she had tried to bury was slowly rising. And this time, not just as a maid, but as a woman Nathan was beginning to see. She knew she had to act fast. The next morning, Tracy went straight to Nathan's mother with a fake smile and fabricated tears. "There's something I must confess, Ma. Dorcas is not who she says she is." Nathan stood in front of the grand window in his office, staring out into the misty garden where the morning dew still kissed the petals. But his mind wasn't on the flowers, or the breeze, or even the stack of files waiting on his desk. His thoughts kept drifting back to Dorcas, the quiet maid with intelligent eyes and a voice that stirred something deep within him. There was something about her, something he couldn't explain. She didn't dress like the women who chased him. She didn't speak unless necessary. Yet, every word she uttered lingered in his memory like perfume. He found himself thinking about her at the most random times. During meetings, while driving, even while talking to Tracy. And that bothered him. Was he going crazy? He shook the thought away and sat down. Just then, his intercom buzzed. "Sir, Miss Tracy is here to see you." "Send her in." Tracy walked in, wearing a pastel pink blouse and her signature red lipstick. She carried a folder, but Nathan noticed, unlike before, his heart didn't leap when she smiled. "You look tired," she said sweetly. "I've been thinking a lot." "About the board meeting?" she asked, sitting across from him. "No," he replied plainly. "About people. Who they say they are, and who they really are." Tracy's fingers tightened slightly on her folder, but she quickly recovered with a soft chuckle. "Well, speaking of that, I thought it's time I told you something. About your new maid." Nathan looked up, expression unreadable. "What about her?" Tracy lowered her voice. "Dorcas. She's not who she pretends to be. She was expelled from her university. That's why she has no documents. She lies a lot. She's cunning. I knew her from childhood." Nathan narrowed his eyes slightly. "She told me she graduated with first class." "That's part of the act," Tracy said quickly. "I just don't want her to embarrass you. You trust me, right?" Nathan didn't answer immediately. He nodded slowly and dismissed her politely. But something didn't sit right. Why would someone with nothing to gain lie about having a degree, only to clean floors and wash bed sheets? Her explanation made sense. Her intelligence was real. His mother loved her. Could Tracy be jealous? He decided to find out for himself. That afternoon, Nathan's mother called Dorcas to her private sitting room. "Nathan asked me to give you this," she said, handing her an envelope. Dorcas opened it cautiously. Inside was a sealed invitation to a company dinner, with her name boldly written in gold ink. "Why would he want me there?" she asked, confused. "Because he sees something in you," Nathan's mother replied warmly. "Now, let me find you a dress." Dorcas looked stunned. "But I'm just a maid." "No, child," she said softly. "You're so much more. And it's time the world sees it." That evening, Dorcas wore a modest royal blue gown that hugged her softly but spoke volumes. Her hair was braided neatly. A touch of lip gloss, earrings no bigger than buttons, she looked like someone who had stepped out of a forgotten dream. When Nathan saw her walk into the event hall, he paused mid-sentence. His breath caught in his throat. She wasn't dazzling like a socialite, but she was real. Raw, radiant, and unmistakably graceful. Tracy, on the other hand, nearly dropped her wine glass. She hadn't expected Dorcas to show up, not like this, and definitely not beside Nathan's mother, smiling. People began whispering. "Who is she? Is she a guest speaker? She looks important." The director of communications mistakenly assumed Dorcas was from Harvard and approached her with a business card. Before she could explain, Nathan arrived beside her. "She's with me," he said calmly, placing his hand gently on her back. The air shifted. Tracy's face paled. She marched to the washroom, locked the door, and let out a scream into her palms. Everything was falling apart. Later that night, Dorcas stepped into the balcony to catch her breath. Nathan joined her, his hands in his pockets. "You handled the evening well." I wasn't sure I belonged. He turned to her. You belong more than half the people in that hall. Dorcas smiled, then turned serious. Can I ask something, sir? Go ahead. Why did you invite me? Nathan took a deep breath. Because I wanted to see if what I thought about you was real. And what do you think? He met her eyes. That you're not just a maid. You're a muse. Dorcas looked away, her heart pounding. But inside, a fire was beginning to grow. Not the fire of romance just yet, but of awakening. She was beginning to remember who she was, and who she used to be before betrayal turned her world upside down. But unknown to her, Tracy had already hacked into one of Nathan's office drawers earlier that week, the one where he stored background verification documents. And what she saw there made her panic. The original copy of Dorcas' certificate had been recovered, with her real name. And now, she had only one option left, to destroy Dorcas once and for all, before the truth destroys her. Dorcas had just finished cleaning the kitchen that morning, when she heard Tracy's voice echo through the hallway like a warning siren. Dorcas, I thought I told you to polish the balcony railings before Nathan comes down for breakfast. Dorcas sighed but managed a polite, yes, ma, as she picked up the cleaning cloth. She wasn't surprised anymore. It had been 2 weeks since she started working as a maid in Nathan's house, and each day, Tracy found a new reason to boss her around like a slave. But what hurt Dorcas the most wasn't the cleaning. It was watching her childhood friend pretend to be someone she wasn't. Tracy, who once shared pap and beans with her after school, now walked around in designer heels and fake confidence, pretending to be a university graduate and the perfect woman for Nathan. Dorcas knew the truth, and it burned in her chest every time Nathan looked at Tracy with admiration in his eyes. That morning, Dorcas noticed something odd. Nathan seemed distant from Tracy. At breakfast, when Tracy leaned in to whisper something sweet into his ear, he politely pulled back. You okay? She asked, faking concern. Nathan smiled but didn't answer. He looked over at Dorcas instead. How's the cleaning going? He asked gently. Dorcas nearly dropped the orange juice she was pouring. It was the first time he had spoken to her like that since she started working there. It's going well, sir, she replied. Nathan smiled. Good. Tracy's eyes narrowed. That evening, Tracy cornered Dorcas in the laundry room. She slammed the door and folded her arms like a school principal about to scold a naughty pupil. Listen, Dorcas, she began coldly. Don't get any funny ideas. Nathan is mine. Whatever you think you're doing by acting sweet and innocent, stop it. This isn't university. This is real life. Dorcas looked at her with wide, hurt eyes. I haven't done anything wrong, Tracy. I'm just doing my job. Oh, really? Tracy scoffed. You don't know how to mind your business. Do you want me to remind you why you're here? You begged me for help, remember? I gave you this job. Don't make me regret it. Dorcas said nothing, but inside, something broke. That night, while clearing Nathan's study, she noticed a book lying open on the table. It was a report on all staff and their certifications. One file had Tracy's name on it. Curiosity got the better of her. She opened the folder, and what she saw made her knees weak. Her certificate. Her real university certificate with her name on it. But the photo had been swapped. Tracy's face had been placed over hers. Dorcas froze. Her breath quickened. Her hands trembled. So it was true. Tracy had stolen her identity to get this job. Suddenly, everything made sense. The job at Nathan's company, the maid arrangement, the condescending treatment, the fear Tracy carried around like perfume. Dorcas wanted to cry. But she didn't. Not this time. She quietly took a picture of the forged certificate with her phone and returned it to the folder, exactly as it was. As she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She remembered how Tracy had promised to submit her application for her. How she had trusted her blindly, because they were sisters in poverty, survivors of the same street. But now Tracy was living her dreams, her career, her opportunity, and was planning to marry the man Dorcas had secretly admired since the first day she met him. But Dorcas smiled through her tears. Because now, she had something powerful. The truth. And she wasn't going to rush. She was going to use it wisely. To teach her former best friend the lesson of a lifetime. And maybe, just maybe, win the heart of the man who had been lied to from the very beginning. Dorcas wore a quiet smile the next morning as she walked past Tracy in the hallway. "Good morning, Ma," she said gently. Tracy barely responded, distracted by her own reflection in the mirror by the stairs. She was too busy fixing her wig and adjusting her necklace. Nathan had promised to take her out for brunch. But Dorcas knew something she didn't. Today would be different. Nathan was beginning to see through the surface. He had noticed little things. Like how Tracy fumbled when talking about economics, a subject she claimed to have studied in university. Or how she nervously avoided conversations about her academic past. The final push came that morning during brunch. They were seated at a quiet rooftop restaurant. Tracy dressed like royalty, smiling wide for every picture, talking loudly as if trying to impress the entire Lagos skyline. Nathan listened, nodding, but his mind seemed distant. He finally interrupted. "Tracy, can I ask you something personal?" She blinked. "Of course." "You said you graduated from Unilag with first class in economics, right?" She hesitated only slightly. "Yes. Best in my department." He leaned forward. "Then you must know Professor Abayomi, the head of department. He was my uncle." Tracy froze. The straw of her cocktail stopped halfway to her lips. Nathan noticed. "You must have taken his class in your final year," he pressed. Tracy laughed awkwardly. Oh, maybe the name doesn't ring a bell. You know how big Unilag is." Nathan didn't respond. He just looked at her with calm intensity. "I'll give him a call tonight. I'm sure he'll remember one of his best students." Tracy nearly choked on her drink. Meanwhile, Dorcas watched them from afar. She had come to drop off Nathan's forgotten wallet as an excuse. But really, she wanted to see the cracks form. When she returned home, she went straight to her room and opened the gallery on her phone. She stared at the picture of the forged certificate again. She still couldn't believe the depth of Tracy's betrayal. That evening, Nathan returned home earlier than expected. He walked straight past Tracy and called Dorcas to his study. She stood nervously by the door, unsure of what he wanted. "Dorcas, come in," he said kindly. She stepped in. "I need to ask you something," he said, folding his arms. "And I want you to be completely honest with me." Dorcas swallowed hard. "Yes, sir." "Do you know anything about Tracy's academic background? Anything that doesn't quite add up?" Dorcas looked at him. Her heart pounded in her chest. "I think you should see something," she whispered, pulling out her phone. She showed him the photo. He took the phone, stared at the image, then looked up at her in disbelief. "Is this real?" Dorcas nodded slowly. "That certificate is mine." She changed the photo and submitted it. "I didn't know until I found it by accident in your study." Nathan leaned back, silent. After a moment, he handed her back the phone. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Dorcas's eyes welled with tears. "Because I wasn't sure if you'd believe me. I'm just the maid. And she's everything you think she is." Nathan stood. "No, Dorcas, she's not. And you're a lot more than just a maid." Dorcas looked up, startled. "I've seen how you carry yourself. How you speak with grace. How you serve with dignity. And now I know why. You're not just kind. You're educated, and strong, and wrongfully robbed. He paused. I promise you, this ends tonight. That night, everything changed. Nathan called a family meeting and laid the evidence bare. Tracy cried, screamed, and begged, but it was too late. The mask had fallen. She was escorted out of the house before midnight. Her reign was over. And Dorcas stood by the window, watching her former best friend disappear into the night. Her heart was heavy, but free. She didn't feel victorious. She felt vindicated, and perhaps just a little hopeful, because the man she had once loved from a distance was now standing beside her, watching the same stars. And maybe, just maybe, this was only the beginning. Dorcas didn't sleep that night. Her heart was still racing, not out of fear, but out of a strange calm. A peace she hadn't known in years. The truth had finally broken through the lies. And Nathan, he had listened. He had believed her. For a woman like Dorcas, who had spent most of her life being overlooked, that was everything. The next morning, the house was unusually quiet. Tracy's presence had always brought noise, heels clacking, loud phone calls, perfumes choking the hallway air. Now, only the soft birdsong and the distant hum of traffic remained. Dorcas, wearing her plain brown dress and modest slippers, quietly tidied the sitting room. Nathan walked in unexpectedly. He wasn't in his usual suit. Just joggers and a polo shirt. Relaxed. Almost vulnerable. Their eyes met. "Good morning, sir," she greeted, looking down. He walked closer. "Dorcas, can we talk?" She nodded, placing the duster aside. Nathan pointed to the long couch. "Sit, please." She hesitated, then sat at the edge. He sat too, but not too close. There was a gentle space between them. Respectful. "I owe you a lot," he began. "Not just for exposing Tracy's lies, but for being honest and patient. You never tried to manipulate me. You didn't even demand anything." Dorcas smiled faintly. "It wasn't my place, sir." Nathan shook his head. "No, it was. You were the one wronged. And still, you carried the weight with quiet grace. That's rare." There was a pause. Dorcas cleared her throat. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't even come here looking for a second chance at life. I just wanted peace." Nathan looked at her more closely. Her eyes were still tired, but softer now. Her beauty was subtle, like moonlight. The kind you don't notice until everything else goes dark. "You deserve more than peace," he said softly. "You deserve happiness, purpose, recognition." She blinked, surprised by his words. "I've been thinking," he continued. "Would you consider returning to school? Completing your studies? Officially this time. I could sponsor you. No strings attached." Dorcas's lips parted. "Why would you do that for me?" Nathan leaned forward slightly. "Because you've given so much and taken nothing. It's time someone gave back." Tears welled up in her eyes, uninvited. Her heart swelled. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." She let out a quiet laugh, wiping her eyes with the hem of her apron. "Yes, sir." He smiled. "Call me Nathan, please. Just Nathan." There was a knock at the door. It was the driver, holding out an envelope. Nathan took it, glanced through it, and nodded. "Your recommendation letter and scholarship documents. Already signed." Dorcas gasped. "You had this prepared?" Nathan grinned. "I started the process 2 nights ago. Something in me knew. I just needed confirmation." Dorcas clutched the envelope to her chest. Her dream, Her long-dead dream was alive again. Later that day, Nathan took her to a bookstore. A small, quiet place tucked between two cafes in Victoria Island. He watched as her fingers danced over the shelves, eyes wide with curiosity. "Pick anything you want," he said. Dorcas giggled like a child. "Even these expensive ones?" He laughed. "Especially those." They spent over an hour in the store, and when they emerged, Dorcas held 3 books like trophies. Her eyes sparkled, not just with gratitude, but with hope. Nathan noticed something that day. Dorcas didn't just read books. Nathan had always trusted Tracy. She was bold, eloquent, and elegant, the kind of woman his board would accept as a future CEO's wife. But lately, he had started feeling something strange in his gut. Her answers didn't always add up. Her warmth felt forced. And ever since he returned from the business trip, he noticed a growing glow in Dorcas, one that confused and intrigued him. That afternoon, Nathan came home earlier than usual, wanting to surprise Tracy with lunch. As he stepped into the compound, he noticed the house was unusually quiet. No music, no laughter, just silence. He tiptoed through the hallway and paused near the guest room door. Tracy's voice echoed from inside. "I said delete every damn file connected to that fake certificate," she snapped over the phone. "If anyone finds out I used Dorcas documents, it's over for me. That housemaid is getting too smart for her own good. I should have sent her away the moment Nathan started looking at her like that." Nathan's heartbeat paused. He stood still. Tracy continued. "And now she has the nerve to confront me? She doesn't know who she's dealing with. I'll get her fired and sent back to that gutter she came from. She'll never have a future again. Let her try me." Silence. Then Tracy laughed bitterly. "Nathan thinks he's in love. Please. He's just a confused little boy in a rich man's suit. I own his mind. And soon, I'll own his inheritance too." Nathan's knees weakened. His mind swirled. Dorcas, the certificate, the betrayal, the manipulation. It all came crashing down like a wave. He backed away quietly, his hand shaking as he clutched the car keys. He rushed outside, got into his car, and drove off with no destination. His world had just shifted. The woman he was planning to marry had used fraud and threats to enter his life. And the one he had looked down on, the girl in the maid's uniform, was the one holding the truth all along. He stopped at a small, quiet park on the outskirts of town. He needed to think, to breathe. He stared at the sky, broken. Then he remembered something. Dorcas had once told him in passing, some people climb trees using other people's roots. He never understood what she meant, until now. Nathan sat in the car for hours, piecing everything together. Dorcas' intelligence, her calm spirit, her avoidance of company matters, her pain. She had kept it all inside. While Tracy wore his suits and slept in his home, Dorcas was the one holding his piece together quietly from the shadows. He felt ashamed. Ashamed for ever judging her. Ashamed that he allowed love to blind him from truth. By evening, he returned home quietly. He didn't tell anyone he was back. As he walked past the kitchen, he heard Dorcas singing a soft gospel song as she chopped vegetables. Her voice was shaky, like someone carrying silent pain. He stood there, watching her. The simplicity in her brokenness moved him more than Tracy's polished beauty ever could. He cleared his throat. She turned sharply, startled. "Oh, I didn't know you were back, sir." "Dorcas," he said, voice low, "we need to talk." She wiped her hands quickly and nodded. "Yes, sir." He looked her in the eyes. "No, not like a boss and maid. I want to hear everything. From the beginning. Tell me the truth, please." Dorcas froze. Her lips trembled. You know." Nathan nodded. overheard everything. Tears gathered in her eyes. For a moment, she tried to stay strong, but they rolled down anyway. I never wanted to hurt anyone, she whispered. I just wanted to survive. Nathan walked closer, took her hands in his, and said, Dorcas, from today, you don't need to survive anymore. You need to live. She looked up at him, shocked. He continued, I don't know where this is going, but I know who I can trust now. They stood in silence, eyes locked, pain melting into peace. Just then, the front door slammed open. It was Tracy, and she had heard just enough to know her empire was crumbling. The silence in the house was shattered by the sharp click of Tracy's heels on the marble floor. Her eyes were dark with rage, lips twisted in fury. She had heard just enough from the hallway to know her game was over. So, she spat, storming into the kitchen. This is what you've been planning behind my back. You, she pointed at Dorcas with a shaking hand. You snake in a maid's clothing. Nathan stepped protectively in front of Dorcas. Stop, Tracy. Tracy's laugh was manic. Oh, so now you're her knight in shining armor. What did she do? Cry her way into your heart? Dorcas took a step back, stunned, but Nathan's voice was firm. No, Tracy. She walked into my heart with truth. Something you know nothing about. Tracy's eyes burned. You think she's innocent. That I'm the villain. I know what I heard, Nathan replied coldly. And I know you faked documents to take her place. You used her qualifications to win a job, then tried to erase her. That's not ambition. That's evil. Tracy's voice cracked. I did it for us, Nathan. For your future. For our future. She's just a maid. No, Nathan said, turning toward Dorcas. She's a woman with more strength than you'll ever understand. She didn't need lies to be great. Tracy's face paled. Nathan walked closer to her, his expression stony. You manipulated me, Tracy. You pretended to love me while plotting your rise. You made this about power. And now, you're finished. With trembling hands, she scoffed. You don't have proof. Nathan pulled out his phone. He had recorded her conversation. Everything. I'll let my lawyers decide what to do with this. But I want you out of my house. Tonight. Tracy staggered back as if slapped. You can't do this to me. I gave you everything. You gave me lies, he said simply. Nathan turned away from her, took Dorcas' hand gently, and said, Go upstairs, pack your things. Dorcas blinked, confused. Am I leaving? He smiled faintly. No. You're moving to the guest suite. I want you here, where you belong. Tracy exploded. What? You're replacing me with her. This, Maid. Nathan didn't even look at her. She's more of a queen than you ever were. Tracy lunged forward, but the security guards were already at the door. Nathan had called them before he arrived. With quiet professionalism, they escorted Tracy out, her screams echoing through the compound. Once the door slammed shut, peace returned. Dorcas stood frozen, overwhelmed. Why are you doing this? She asked. Nathan sat down, eyes heavy. Because I've lived in a mansion filled with pretense. For once, I want to live in truth. She looked at him, voice breaking. I'm still just a cook, Nathan. No, he said, taking her hands again. You're a woman of depth, of quiet brilliance, of patience. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to know you, not as an employee, but as someone who might mean everything to me. Dorcas covered her mouth, unable to hold back the tears. No one had ever chosen her. No one had ever seen her worth. In that moment, everything she'd ever prayed for didn't just come to her, It bowed before her. Nathan stood and smiled. Let's start over. What's your real full name? She chuckled through her tears. Shyly. Dorcas Ullenraweju Emmanuel. Nice to meet you, Dorcas, he whispered, pulling her into a gentle hug. From the shadows of betrayal, a new love was being born, not in grand gestures or luxury, but in truth, respect, and healing. And upstairs, on a neatly folded apron, Dorcas left a note. From servant to someone seen. Thank you. Dorcas stood by the window of her new room, the guest suite. It was larger than her entire family's house back in Ireland. The gold-accented curtains shimmered in the late evening sun, but she wasn't looking at the room. She was thinking of Nathan. The way he held her hand earlier that day. The way he said her name, not as a servant, but as a woman, a person, someone. She pressed her palm against her chest, trying to steady the rhythm of her heart. It had never danced like this before. A soft knock pulled her from her thoughts. She opened the door. It was Nathan, holding a small tray with 2 cups of steaming tea. I wasn't sure how you liked it, he said, looking almost nervous, but I remembered you once said you loved lemon and ginger. Dorcas smiled. You remembered that. I've been watching you longer than I should admit, he replied softly. Not out of suspicion, but admiration. They sat together near the window. For a long moment, they didn't speak. The silence between them wasn't heavy. It was sacred. It was new. Then Nathan took a deep breath. Dorcas, he said slowly, I was broken before you came. I thought love was built on appearances and power. Tracy showed me that kind of love, and it nearly destroyed me. Dorcas watched him, her heart tightening. But you, he continued, you entered my life quietly, like a whisper I didn't know I needed. And you became the only voice I hear in my head when I think of peace, of truth. She looked down. Nathan, I don't know how to be loved by someone like you. He took her hand. Then let me learn how to love someone like you. Someone real. Tears welled up in her eyes. I was told I'd never matter unless I had money or connections. That people like you would never look at girls like me. That I should be lucky just to serve, not to dream. Nathan moved closer. Then I must be blind, he whispered, because I see nothing but light in you. Their eyes locked. Then, as if guided by the wind outside, their heads leaned in, and for the first time, Nathan kissed Dorcas, gently, respectfully, like a man asking permission with every heartbeat. When they parted, she exhaled, trembling. This feels like a dream, she said. He smiled. Then don't wake up. But reality still lingered in her mind. Nathan, the world may never accept us. You're a billionaire. I'm just a cook. Nathan shook his head. No, Dorcas, you're my cook. The woman who fed me without knowing I was starving inside. And I don't care what anyone says. Dorcas let the tears fall. This was more than romance. This was redemption. She had once begged for jobs. Once hidden her degree. Once endured Tracy's insults. But now, she was being chosen. Not for what she could offer, but for who she was. Outside, the stars began to blink in the sky. A new night was writing itself. Inside, Dorcas and Nathan held each other, not in lust or fantasy, but in a love that had survived betrayal, lies, and silence. And somewhere in that mansion, a new story was being born. Not of a maid and her boss, but of 2 souls who finally heard each other. The morning sun shone brighter than usual, pouring light over the marble floors of the mansion. The birds outside chirped with a kind of rhythm that made the day feel special, like something was about to change forever. Dorcas woke up early, not in the kitchen, but in the guest suite Nathan insisted she call her own. The memory of last night still played in her chest like music. His confession, their kiss, his promise. But this morning, her heart was racing. Not from love. From fear. Because today, the world would know. Nathan had made it clear. He was done hiding. Done living for the approval of fake friends or shallow society. He had planned it all. A press release, a staff announcement, and a dinner with his mother. And Dorcas. She was the center of it. By noon, the staff had gathered in the grand hall. Housekeepers, chefs, drivers, gardeners, all standing silently, their eyes darting between Nathan and Dorcas, who stood beside him like a lamb among lions. Nathan's voice was calm but firm. "I called this meeting to clear the air," he began. "Some of you may have noticed changes. Whispers. But I don't believe in hiding truth from the people closest to me." The room grew still. "I am in love with Dorcas." Gasps. Audible. Sharp. A few hands covered Maid's. A few eyes widened in disbelief. Nathan held up his hand. "Yes. Dorcas. The one you all call Cook. But who, to me, is the woman who taught me to feel again? Who saw me when I couldn't even see myself?" He looked around. "If any of you believe she doesn't belong here, speak now. But know this, where I stand, she is no less than family." Tears brimmed in Dorcas's eyes. Her hands trembled. She had spent her life hiding in kitchens and corners. Now, she was being seen, not by one man, but by the entire house. No one spoke. But something shifted. One by one, the staff began to bow slightly, not in mockery, but in respect. A quiet, humble acknowledgement that things had changed. That love had spoken. And they had heard. That evening, Nathan's mother arrived from Abuja. Elegant, powerful, and famously known for her influence in political circles. She stepped out of her luxury car in a purple lace gown, heels clicking with authority. Nathan met her at the entrance. "Mema," he greeted with a bow. She looked at him, then at Dorcas, who stood behind with trembling knees. "Is this her?" "Yes. Mema. Dorcas." Margaret walked slowly toward her, eyeing her like a hawk would a rabbit. "Do you cook or cast spells?" she asked bluntly. Dorcas almost crumbled. Nathan stepped in. "Mema, please." But Dorcas didn't flinch. She looked Margaret in the eye. "I cook, Ma, with my heart. And that's the only thing I used to win your son." A silence followed. Margaret stared for a long moment, then smiled faintly. Bold. I see why he's confused." Then she turned. "Let's eat. I want to taste this heart-cooked meal." Dinner was silent, tense, and slow. Dorcas had personally prepared every dish. Egusi with pounded yam, jollof rice with grilled goat meat, garden salad with tiger nuts. Margaret took a bite, paused, took another, then another. Finally, she looked up. "Nathan." "Yes, Mema. If this girl cooked this, then I suggest you marry her before someone else does." Dorcas gasped. Her hands flew to her lips. Nathan laughed, relieved, overwhelmed. Margaret stood and walked to Dorcas. Her expression softened. "I gave birth to a man who nearly lost himself chasing perfection. But it seems you, girl, brought him back. I may not understand it, but I'll respect it." And with that, she placed her palm on Dorcas's shoulder. "Welcome to the family." Later that night, Nathan and Dorcas stood under the stars again. "I told you," he whispered, holding her close. "I don't need the world. Just you." "But the world is watching now," she said, trembling. "Then let them watch love unfold." Because now, it was no longer a secret. It was a story the world would never forget. Please subscribe now. Nathan couldn't sleep. Ever since Dorcas handed him the brown envelope, his mind had been racing. He had promised her not to open it until after his trip to Abuja, but curiosity was now clawing at his chest like a trapped animal. He had trusted Tracy for years, perhaps too blindly. But Dorcas had never lied to him. And now, she was risking everything just to warn him. When he returned from Abuja 2 days later, he locked himself in his study and finally opened the envelope. Inside, he found a flash drive, a printed job application letter with Dorcas' name typed at the top, but Tracy's passport photograph and signature, and a tiny note in Dorcas' beautiful handwriting that read, "Listen to everything carefully. Then ask yourself one question. Am I marrying love or betrayal?" He plugged the flash drive into his laptop. There were 2 audio files and a video clip. He clicked the video first. The screen came alive with Dorcas, quietly setting her phone on record and hiding it in a flower vase. The date on the video was 2 weeks ago. A few seconds later, Tracy appeared in the room, unaware of the camera. What followed next nearly froze Nathan's blood. Tracy paced around the room, speaking into her phone. "She's too stubborn," she hissed. "Dorcas still thinks I helped her by recommending her as a maid. Can you imagine that? If only she knew that I'm the one who took her certificate and used it to get this job. That girl should have never been born with such brilliance. But no worries. Once I marry Nathan, I'll send her far away. She's beginning to suspect me." Nathan paused the video. His hands were trembling. He had heard enough. His whole world tilted. His chest tightened with a heavy mix of rage, betrayal, and disbelief. Tracy had used a stolen certificate to secure her job. She lied about her qualifications. And worse, she had planted Dorcas in his house to keep her from finding out. He clicked on the audio files next. One was a secretly recorded phone call between Tracy and a woman named Helen, another friend from their childhood. In it, Tracy boasted that Dorcas was too naive to suspect anything, and that Nathan was already falling for her sweet talk. She ended the call laughing. But the second audio crushed whatever little faith Nathan still had left. In it, Dorcas could be heard confronting Tracy gently, asking why she took her certificate. Tracy exploded with venom, accusing Dorcas of being ungrateful and warning her to keep her mouth shut if she ever wanted peace. Nathan closed his laptop slowly. Then he stood up and looked out of the window, into the dark, silent night. He now saw everything clearly. Tracy was not the woman he thought she was. And Dorcas, she wasn't just a maid. She was a victim of betrayal, fighting silently, humbly, and courageously. He picked up his phone and dialed Dorcas. She didn't pick. He tried again. Still no answer. Then he remembered. Today was her final day in his mansion. Tracy had asked him weeks ago to relieve Dorcas of her duties as they prepared for the wedding. He jumped into his car and drove straight to the servant quarters. But it was empty. Dorcas had packed her things. She had left. Not knowing what else to do, Nathan drove around town aimlessly, stopping at her favorite bakery. The owner, a smiling elderly woman, recognized him. "Oh, you just missed her, sir," she said. She came to buy bread, but she looked a little sad. She said she's traveling back to her village to stay with her mother. "Did she say where exactly?" Nathan asked, desperate. The woman nodded. "I believe she mentioned Umualechi, in Anambra State." Nathan thanked her, got back in his car, and drove home. But sleep didn't come. By morning, he had packed a few things, instructed his driver to fuel the car, and set out for Umualechi. This wasn't just about righting a wrong anymore. It was about love, real love, that had stood silently in his home, sweeping floors and washing dishes while carrying a broken heart. He couldn't let her leave like this. He wouldn't. He had a wedding to cancel, a woman to expose, and a queen to go after. Dorcas. The true woman his heart had chosen. The sun hadn't even risen when Nathan's car tore through the early morning fog, leaving the city behind and chasing a narrow road that led deep into Anambra State. He sat in the back seat, lost in thought, his eyes fixed on the horizon but his mind firmly rooted in the past. He replayed the moments he had with Dorcas, the quiet kindness, the way she always left a cup of warm tea by his study door without ever being told, her silence when insulted, her calmness in the face of Tracy's subtle cruelty, and most of all, that deep, haunting gaze she gave him the last night she left. That look wasn't just goodbye. It was sorrow. And love. He had failed her. As his convoy reached Umualechi by midday, the driver slowed down, unsure of the route. The village was peaceful, surrounded by palm trees and red earth, the kind of place where time stood still and hearts were raised on humility. "Ask someone," Nathan said quietly, rolling down the window. A group of women selling fruits directed them to Mema Uche's compound, Dorcas' mother. When Nathan stepped out of the car, dressed in a simple shirt and jeans, children ran from the compound yelling, "Uncle Cardon, come! Big man day find Mema Uche." Mema Uche herself came out, her wrapper tied firmly, her eyes filled with surprise. She recognized Nathan immediately. After all, Dorcas had once shown her a photo. You're the one she worked for in Lagos?" the woman asked, shielding her eyes from the sun. "Yes, Ma," Nathan said humbly, bowing slightly. "I'm here for Dorcas." Mema Uche blinked. "She's inside. But she's not been herself." Nathan's heart pounded as he followed her into the clay house. Inside, on a small mat by the window, sat Dorcas. She looked thinner. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but they still carried the grace of someone who had learned how to suffer silently. When she saw him, she froze. "Nathan," she whispered, standing slowly. He took a step forward, then knelt before her. "I came to find the woman who gave me peace when I didn't even know I needed it," he said, voice cracking. "Dorcas, I know everything. I saw the video. I listened to the audios. I was blind, but now I see. You were never just a maid. You were my angel." Tears welled in her eyes. She tried to speak but couldn't. "I cancelled the wedding," Nathan continued. "I called it off yesterday. I'm not marrying a lie. I'm here to ask for something more than forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance." Dorcas looked away, wiping her eyes. "Why now?" she asked softly. "Why after I've been humiliated and used and thrown away?" "Because I was foolish," Nathan replied honestly. "But you loved me even when you had every reason not to. You honored me when you had secrets that could destroy me. You chose silence over revenge." Dorcas shook her head. "But the world will laugh. They'll say I bewitched you, that you married your maid." Nathan smiled. "Let them say what they want. You weren't my maid. You were God's mercy in disguise. I didn't fall for your status, Dorcas. I fell for your soul." There was silence. Then Mema Uche, who had been watching quietly, stepped forward. "If you truly mean it, go to the elders. Let them hear you. Let the whole village see that this daughter of mine, who was rejected in the city, is now being honored." Nathan nodded. "I will." That evening, the village square buzzed with whispers and amazement as a black SUV pulled up and a man in fine clothes stepped out to kneel before the Council of Elders. He spoke with tears in his voice and truth in his heart. "I have come to ask for Dorcas' hand in marriage," he said. "I came with nothing in return except love, and I am ready to wait, to fight, to do whatever it takes for her to believe me again." The elders looked at Dorcas, who stood by her mother, stunned. Then, the oldest among them smiled. A man who humbles himself before truth has already paid half of his bride price. The crowd cheered. But Dorcas didn't smile. Not yet. She walked toward Nathan slowly, stopped before him, and asked, Are you ready to carry the shame with me? To love me when the world still calls me just a maid?" Nathan looked up at her, his eyes glistening. "No," he said. "I'm ready to honor you as my crown. Because you were never just a maid. You were my miracle in disguise." Dorcas broke down in tears. And in that village square, under the golden glow of the sunset and amidst 100 witnesses, she whispered what he had longed to hear. "Yes, I'll give you a chance." The wedding was grand, but not because of its decorations or expensive flair. It was grand because of the emotions that hung in the air, the justice that had been served, and the love that had triumphed over deceit. Dorcas stood before the mirror, her heart dancing to the rhythm of joy. The once poor maid now wore a white dress that whispered dignity and grace. Her eyes sparkled, not just because of the makeup, but because she had fought for her life, her name, her truth. And today, she was about to marry the man who saw all of it and chose her. "Nathan is waiting," said Mama Agatha, Dorcas' mother, dabbing a tear with the edge of her wrapper. "You were born for this moment, my child." Dorcas nodded, her lips trembling with emotion. "God saved the best for last, Mama." As the music played and the guests rose to their feet, Nathan stood at the altar, his eyes fixed on the entrance. When Dorcas appeared, his breath caught. This wasn't the maid he once hired. This was the woman who exposed the truth, protected his name, and won his heart, not with tricks, but with truth. Tracy, on the other hand, sat quietly at the back of the church. She had been released on bail, but her reputation was forever stained. She had lost everything: her job, her friendship, her dream wedding. Yet, she couldn't look away as Dorcas walked down the aisle. That was supposed to be her spot. But today, she bore witness to what truth could do. As Dorcas reached the altar, Nathan whispered, "Thank you, for being brave, for being you." Tears slid down Dorcas' cheeks. "Thank you, for believing in me." The vows were more than words. They were promises carved from storms, shaped by betrayal, and sealed with love. When Nathan said, "I do," it was not just to Dorcas, it was to a future that had been rewritten by courage. The guests clapped, some wiping tears. Many knew the story. It had spread beyond Nathan's company. It had become a tale of warning and hope, of how lies may run for a while, but truth will always catch up. At the reception, laughter rang in the air. Dorcas danced with her mother. Nathan toasted to new beginnings. And just when the crowd thought the day couldn't get more emotional, Nathan made a surprise announcement. "I have one more gift for my wife," he said, motioning for the MC to lower the music. Dorcas looked confused. "Nathan, what now?" He smiled and pulled out an envelope. "This is your employment letter. You're no longer my maid. You're now the director of corporate communications at my company." Gasps echoed across the hall. Dorcas stared at him, stunned. "Me?" "Yes," he said. "The position was always meant for you. You studied English. You write better than anyone I've seen. You exposed a crime that could have destroyed this company. You deserve this and more." Dorcas fell to her knees, overcome with emotion. "Nathan, thank you. Thank you." He lifted her gently and whispered, "Thank you for loving me when I didn't know I was lovable." The crowd cheered. It was more than a wedding. It was a celebration of truth, of justice, of love reclaimed. Later that night, as they sat alone watching the stars, Dorcas leaned on Nathan's shoulder. "I used to pray in the kitchen while scrubbing your floors," she whispered. "I never imagined this." Nathan kissed her forehead. "And I used to think love was just business until you walked into my life with your apron and honesty." Dorcas smiled, her heart full. The poor maid had become the woman of the house. And the billionaire. He found in her not just a wife, but a treasure. If this story touched your heart, tell us where you're watching from. Type in the comments if you want more beautiful stories like this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next.